Hello, how are you? I want to just make a new video today on genetic modification. Who is it? It was Red Dot Wolf made he posted a documentary called Unnatural Selection. It's got 4 parts to it. Unnatural Selection, and it was I think a documentary on TV it says Unnatural Selection is a 2019 TV documentary series that presents an overview of genetic engineering, and particularly the DNA editing technology of CRISPR, from the perspective of scientists, corporations, biohackers working from their home, and it was released by Netflix in October 2019. That's a description. Very interesting, long documentary on, the technology of CRISPR and gene editing. Gene editing, we're used to gene editing, of course, genetically modified organisms. And of course, what have they done? They have now applied that to animals and humans. And of course, always, not only for me, the wow, this is already being done kind of thing. We know it's being done. I'm surprised they showed it in 2019. Just letting people really know what kind of technology is out there. And actually maybe also, I don't know if they're going to say anything about mRNA technology, which is a gene editing technology. And maybe we don't have as much experience with that, but it's in the works. But the end goal we know is gene editing. Exactly what they're trying to do. Yes, there are some crazy people. Well, maybe not crazy, but they're unregulated people that do even gene editing out of their garage or their kitchen or shed. And for me, that sounds pretty dangerous, that it's not regulated. And of course, we don't have enough experience. And so maybe this is all allowed. Because, ethically, it's a problem. And who wants to be responsible for the consequences? So, we let these people do it privately, because then we can blame somebody. Oh, it's not the scientists, it's some biohackers or whatever you want to call them. But why am I that addressing here on my biblical channel? What does it have to do? Why do we have to know it? I know some people say, oh, this shot is altering the genes already. And yes, in a petri dish, they did show it, they proved it. The rest is not yet disclosed. Let's put it that way. Do they know? Of course they know. Do they have any plans? Yes, they have plans. And I'm very careful, of course, what I'm saying here. But many people do say that it actually does change our genes, because it's a gene technology. And then we look what is possible already today, and it scares the heck out of people. Why? Because it reminds me of the Bible when Jesus says, I will return when the days are like the time of Noah. And he said that in Matthew 24, I believe it's 27 or 37. It says, about the day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Father, but only the Father, or not even the Son, but only the Father. And then he says, as it was in the days of Noah. So here he is giving us a hint. We don't know the day or the hour, okay? We don't know the day or the hour, but he gives us signs. And the signs he gives us is as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Now he says, for the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. This is just saying, people, that the people went about their daily life and didn't really care about what was going on. Because the times of Noah, people, was not just your ordinary time. That's why the flood came. That's why God's judgment came. But people just continued and pretended like it was just normal, right? People were eating and drinking, marrying, giving the marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And why did the flood come? What was so significant about Noah's time? Well, I think that the significant was that humankind was almost changed. The human DNA was almost changed. And only Noah and his family was left over. And it wasn't just the people, but the animals most likely were also altered. Because what's going on today with this gene editing already happened during Noah's time. We know that the fallen angels intermarried or took themselves women and had children with them. So how did that happen? How does that happen that a spiritual being, a being that doesn't have a human body, can have an offspring with a human being, with a human woman? That's because gene editing. They did something with the gene so this woman could have had a child. And they edited in such a way that they would be what? Giants, Nephilims, hybrids, whatever you want to call them. But the same thing happened then, what we're having today. It's gene editing. Maybe the editing was different, but now they're doing it whatever they want to do right now. We don't know really what went on because the Bible doesn't tell us everything. It just tells us that something must have gone on, that all of a sudden there were these giants, these Nephilims, a mixture between humans and fallen angels. So yeah, that's why God had to destroy humankind. And even within the genome of the people that survived, there was also still this change in there that at one point, these giants again started to come out. Or at least that gene came out in some form, shape that people again, were giants. Because we know it from the time when the Israelites came back to the promised land, that there were giants in the land. We know that Goliath, that giant that David killed, okay, that he existed. The Israelites said, well, we are like grasshoppers. So they were pretty tall people. So yeah, that gene was still there, and God actually, that's why God really told them to kill all the Canaanites, the Canaanites that lived in that area, the people in that area. Because they still had that gene left over in their gene pool. So yeah, that did happen. And from the myth, the Greek mythology, we know that there were also mixtures of humans and animal mixtures and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's not just in the mythology. There has to be some kind of truth behind it. No, we deem it as mythology because for years we had no idea that something like that can even exist. But when we look at today, our gene editing, let's say gene editing, we can see absolutely that could be something. Well, actually, we know that they're doing that today. We already know that they're mixing like sheep that have silk wool. So they're mixing it with, with a silk caterpillar. And so they have a sheep that has silk wool. They have done that a long time ago. Now they're starting to let it kind of out into the public. But these things have been definitely testing with it and have been doing that a long time. And just recently, of course, they came up with this CRISPR idea about, editing really the DNA of humans. See, they have to make it look good for the people so they're not scared to death. And they cannot come out fully and say what they're doing because, again, it's an ethical problem for many people. They have to do it slowly in steps by steps so they know how people will react. Okay, so people will actually take it and run with it. Comes out in this documentary. Some people say, oh, we want to do it. We want to see how it is. And some people say, oh, no, we have to be careful. Especially scientists. They say, well, we want to be careful because we don't want to held accountable when something happens. So, yeah, we're covering it up very easily. And what has happened in the past 2 years, and if you know what I'm talking about, right? I don't know if that is part of the testing. Just going to say it. With gene editing. Because we know the mRNA is a gene technology. They say, no, it is. Yes, it is. We know it now. It's out. We don't have to hide it anymore. We don't have to hide it. It's a gene editing. I don't know, they don't want to be honest about really how it affects human beings yet. That's okay. Remember, they already practiced in this petri dish in the study, in the Swedish study. It's out there, people, okay? It's out there. So we know what's going on and how far are they using it on human beings. This is probably most likely what's going to happen in the future with the medical system. But they're going to try to create either superhumans through gene editing, CRISPR, that they try to, they come out and say, oh, we're going to change only those parts that are not natural, like somebody has a genetic problem, okay, defect, genetic defect, and that's what we're gonna fix that genetic defect, and that's what we're gonna use it for. So people can accept it. Or we're only going to use it for correcting a gene defect. But in reality, if it gets in the wrong hands, what can these people do? And make no mistake, it's already in the wrong hands. Because I really believe that this technology is from the fallen angels. And we are saying, oh, this woman, whoever was responsible for the CRISPR, she discovered it. What did she discover? She just discovered that some protein can change, can go in and change something in your DNA. But who do we know if she was led or how she was led to discover that? Eventually, if you put something in front of humankind enough, they will discover it. But it was always there, and the intention was always there to change humankind through that technology. So, of course, after the flood, we don't understand that before the flood, there was a pretty, people were not in the Stone Age. Most people. Lots of people were not in the Stone Age. They had a pretty high technology before the flood. And all that was gone after the flood. And any catastrophic event, we go back to the Stone Age. And that's what's going to happen again, people. After this next catastrophic event, we're going back to the Stone Age again. And all the technology will be lost. Why? Because we're going against the Creator. The Creator created things, the way He wanted, the way it was good. And human beings constantly, well, not constantly, but every maybe 6,000 years, they come up with this idea that they can play God. Or is Satan coming up and using humankind for that purpose? Because I believe after or during the garden, the same thing happened. God said, don't eat from this fruit in the garden. But is that fruit in the garden, was that just an example and a symbol representation of exactly that, a changing of your DNA? Is that what happened? Is that the reason why they become sinful? Because some DNA change happened, and it really wasn't a fruit, but it was a DNA change. Because I can't explain why in the world they were different afterwards, after they supposedly rebelled. And again, they wanted to be like God, right? To determine, what's right and wrong. What's right and wrong is a moral question. Okay? Obviously, they did not know it was wrong to eat from that fruit or whatever they did. But people, I believe it was the same thing. It was a DNA change. And then we actually come out and say, well, God did not create humankind perfect. But I don't think so. I believe God created humankind perfect, but when we rebelled, our DNA was changed, and therefore we became extremely unperfect. Very sinful, without morals, without really knowing what's right or wrong. I mean, we can't just totally get out of hand when we don't have somebody there that tells humankind, what to do. And maybe that's why we have a tendency to follow and not really depend on our own conscience, because our conscience is so terrible. And we just totally always go wrong. And I think that was the result of some kind of changes that happened when Adam and Eve rebelled. And then, of course, we come to the flood. And the same thing happened again. Some DNA changes because humankind didn't listen to God. Now, do you think these women knew not to get involved with the angels, or the angels knew it for sure, but these women? We don't hear anything, but wouldn't you think that you don't get involved with these angels, fallen angels? I don't know. We don't hear very much in Genesis about this event. When you go back to Genesis, very little is said about the time before the flood. There's books that tell you a little more, like the book of Enoch. Enoch tells you quite a lot about the event before the flood and all the things that happened, and how the people went astray and didn't listen to Methuselah anymore, who was the priest that would tell humankind what to do. The time after Enoch. So, yeah, it's really interesting, or the time during Enoch. It's very interesting, people, what happened during that time. And now we're in that same period of time again. That is what Jesus says. Jesus says it will be just like the time of Noah. And you know what? People will not care. They're too busy eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage. That's what they're busy doing. That's all they're going to be doing. And while they're busy, going along with life and having fun and all that, what is happening? Same thing is happening again that happened before Noah. A change in DNA. People will have the knowledge to change the DNA, and there's going to be people that will misuse it. Satan will use those people that will misuse it. Okay? What's this guy's name? Harari guy? Let me look this guy. Oh yeah. Harari. Yuval Harari. Have you heard about him? You should. Because, yeah, that just goes hand in hand. We're going to create a human being, or a being, which is not human anymore, but a being that will be so much better than what God could create it. He just forgets that God didn't make the mistakes that were made later after He created the human being. He created the human being just fine. And without Satan, it would probably most likely still be okay, the human being. But then this Harari comes in and says, well, I can do a better job. We can do a better job. We got the technology today to create a human being, that lives longer and, is healthy and blah, 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 and continues to do war. Yes. You think that will change people from having these wars and killing each other? No, we just have people that live longer and continue to war longer, and we can really just use them to the limited ends to make war. Really, that helps us a lot? No, that does not help us at all. If human beings are not getting better in what they're doing, and they don't, okay? They don't. They will continue to be corrupt. They will continue to be without morals. They will continue to be without a direction. Why? Because they are disconnected from God, just like this Harari is saying. We don't need God because God made mistakes. Why would we need God? We are much better than God. That's what Harari is saying. Yes. Watch him. Yuval Harari. And this guy, man, I think I told you that in one of my videos. I saw an announcement when I was in Germany. This guy is, I believe he is writing even books for children. And he is even reaching children right now, not just adults. Scary. The dude is scary. Dude is pretty scary. He is an advisor to Klaus Schwab. And that's what their goals are. Their goals are to genetically modify human beings. Oh, they're saying they want to do it, for the benefit. But no. When they're changing God's creation, and he says it out loud, that's what their plan is, to change humankind different than what God created it, again, then we're running exactly into that problem that we're going to be running into the wrath of God, which is coming anyways. But right there, you should know how much closer it is, how much closer the wrath of God is. Very close. Hey, I will put a link on the bottom. There's four parts to it. So watch some of them. So you have really an idea what's already out there. What kind of technology? Because many people say, oh no, they have not developed any of that yet. No, they do. Okay? So watch it. And how is that related to end times? Well, it just tells me that God most likely cannot listen very much longer. And he will not. He will not. He will not allow humankind to be destroyed. He didn't allow it before the flood. He put an end to it. We should know that. This Yuval Harari, who is a Jew, should know it. Should know what God did during or before or during the flood. Oh, but these Jews are just Jews. They are not really believers. So, they don't believe in what the Bible is writing. Anyways, I'm going to come to an end. Just want to give you that information and really making a connection to what Jesus said about the time of Noah. Yeah, and you know what? This reference to their just eating and drinking and marrying, getting married, only means that they had no idea what's coming. No idea. It wasn't the reason why the flood came. The flood came for other reasons, not because they ate and married and whatever. That's not a sign. That is not the sign. The sign is, why did the flood come? That we need to be aware of, and that is exactly what's happening today. I'm coming to an end. People, let the Holy Spirit guide you always.